How to fight the loss of vitality. Internal enemies. Any thoughtful person who reflects even slightly on this matter knows that doctors are right when they tell us that resentment, hatred, grudges, malice, jealousy, and vindictiveness are all attitudes that generate disease. Allow yourself to indulge in a fit of anger and feel the discomfort it creates in your stomach. The body's chemical reactions are triggered by emotional outbursts, resulting in stomach aches and a sense of discomfort. If these outbursts occur repeatedly, whether violently or subtly over time, the overall health of the body will inevitably suffer. During a casual conversation, a doctor once told me that a patient had died from acute resentment. He truly believed that the patient's death was due to a long-standing grudge. He had taxed his body so much that his natural defenses, significantly weakened, were no longer resilient enough to fight off external assaults and disease. He had physically undermined himself with the malignancy of his resentment. So, if you are more fragile than the average person, I suggest you engage in self-examination. Honestly, ask yourself if you harbor any grudges, resentments, or vindictive instincts, and if so, try to rid yourself of them without delay. While these discomforts may seem harmless to others, they can harm you. They gnaw at you day after day without ever having any power over those toward whom you hold them. Many people owe their poor health not to what they eat, but to what eats them. Emotional discomforts turn against you, drain your energy, decrease your effectiveness, and lead to the deterioration of your health. And of course, they undermine your happiness. Recently, a doctor told me about a young woman admitted to the hospital with a temperature of nearly 40 degrees Celsius. She suffered from a specific type of rheumatic arthritis. Her joints had dangerously swollen. To conduct a comprehensive study of her case, the doctor prescribed no medication except a mild sedative. 2 days passed. Then the young woman asked the doctor, "How much longer will I be in this state? How long do you plan to keep me in the hospital?" "I'm afraid." He replied, "You might be here for 6 months." "Do you mean I have to wait all that time before I can get married?" she asked. "I'm sorry, but I cannot promise you any better." This conversation took place in the evening. The next morning, the patient's temperature had returned to normal and the joint swelling had completely disappeared. Unable to explain such a change, the doctor kept her under observation for 2 more days, then allowed her to return home. A month later, she was back in the hospital, in the same pitiful state, with a temperature of 40 degrees and swollen joints. Interviews revealed that her father wanted her to marry someone of his choosing, for purely economic reasons. This young woman loved her father and wanted to fulfill his wishes, but did not want to marry a man she did not love. Her subconscious then helped her in a way by afflicting her with this disease. The doctor explained to the father that if he insisted on this marriage, he risked seeing his daughter become disabled. When she learned she was no longer obligated to marry, the young woman quickly and permanently recovered. Do not think that if you suffer from arthritis, it's because you married the wrong person. This anecdote simply illustrates the relationship between mental suffering and poor health. I read with interest the comments of a psychologist who claimed that babies can catch their parents' fears and hatreds much faster than they can catch measles or any other infectious disease. The fear virus can find a niche in the depths of the subconscious and remain there forever. But fortunately, the psychologist adds, babies can also catch the viruses of love, kindness, and faith, and grow up to become normal, healthy children, and eventually adults. Emotions cause illnesses. In an article in Ladies' Home Journal, Constance G. Foster cites Dr. Edward Weiss of the Temple University School of Medicine, addressing the American College of Physicians, stating that victims of chronic joint and muscle pains may well be people who harbor latent resentment toward a loved one. He added that most of the time, individuals are completely unaware that they harbor such feelings. To dispel any misunderstanding, he continued, It is necessary to understand that emotions and feelings are just as real as microbes and viruses and are no less formidable. Pain and suffering resulting from emotionally rooted illnesses are no more imaginary than those attributable to viruses or bacteria. In neither case is the patient responsible for the progression of their illness. People afflicted with these conditions do not suffer from mental illnesses, but rather from emotional disturbances, often related to marital conflicts or parent-child relationship problems. Since irritation, anger, hatred, and resentment are powerful pathogens, what is their antidote? It obviously consists of adopting an attitude of goodwill, forgiveness, faith, and love. You must also strive to be stoic and unshakable. How, then, achieve all this? We have compiled a list of practical suggestions for you to consider. Many have tried them and achieved excellent results, especially when it comes to dealing with anger. Persistent use of these suggestions can eventually provide a sense of well-being. 1. Remember that anger is an emotion, and emotions are always violent and fiery. That is why it is important to cool their fervor. But how do you achieve this? When someone becomes angry, their fists tend to clench. Their voice becomes strident. They become erect, ready for battle, tense with adrenaline. All the primitive ancestral aggression is there. You must deliberately combat the fervor of this emotion by cooling it down. Show will and consciously relax your fingers to avoid clenching your fists. Lower your voice until it is no more than a whisper. Sit in a chair or, better yet, lie down. It is difficult to lose your temper in such positions. 2. Say aloud to yourself, "Don't be foolish. It will get you nowhere. So calm down." 3. One of the best techniques for soothing anger comes from my grandmother, who always resorts to the old technique of counting to 10. 4. Anger is a general term that refers to the accumulation of a multitude of small frustrations that may seem quite benign when taken individually, but when added together, acquire considerable devastating power that plunges us into a state of total confusion. Therefore, why not list all these little annoying conflicts? No matter how insignificant or inconsequential they may seem at first glance, list them. This will dry up the small streams that feed the great river of anger. 5. Turn every frustration into an opportunity for prayer. Rather than trying to stop the entire anger, which, as we indicated, is a compact mass, it is better to cut short each of the vexations that compose it by meditating in anger. You will thus reduce the cumulative power of anger, making it manageable. 6. Practice telling yourself when you feel anger rising within you, is it really worth it to get myself in such states? Emotionally, it's upsetting, not to mention that I make a fool of myself and risk losing my friends. To ensure that this technique is fully effective, it is recommended to occasionally reflect on the following thought. It is never worth losing control over anything, getting emotionally ruined by trivial frustrations. 7. Try, when an irritating situation arises, to get through it as quickly as possible. Do not let it simmer for a minute longer than necessary. Act immediately. Do not indulge in sulking or self-pity. Do not brood or hold grudges. As soon as you are emotionally hurt, react as if you were injuring a finger by treating it immediately. Otherwise, the situation may escalate unnecessarily. 8. Arm your mind with vigilance and do not allow it to harbor anything that bothers or troubles you. Go to someone reliable and empty your heart until it is released from all resentment.